I'll never forget that day. The sirens, the shouting, the neighbors peeking through their curtains. The police stormed in our house like they owned it. Deep, commanding voices echoing through the house.
Get on the ground! Now!
I froze, my glass of water slipping out of my hand as the words registered. I was in shock. My mom was on her knees in the middle of the living room, her hands behind her head, tears streaming down her face. My dad was standing near the couch, his hands raised, but his chest puffed out, trying to stand his ground, trying to act tough, but I could see the fear in his eyes.
It's okay. Don't worry, baby. Everything's going to be fine.
But it wasn't. They were both arrested that night for drug trafficking. Up until the day of my parents' sentencing, I had been staying with Lisa. She'd been my mom's best friend for as long as I could remember, practically family. When everything went down and my parents were arrested, Lisa was the first to step up and take me in without hesitation. But now, things were different. "Bree," Lisa said softly, her hands wrapped around the steering wheel as we drove to court, "we need to talk." I swallowed hard, bracing myself. "What's up?" "You know I care about you, right? You like family to me. But things have gotten hard. Money's tight, and with everything going on, I just can't do this anymore." I stared at her, the words hitting me like a punch to the gut. "You saying I can't stay with you anymore?" "I'm sorry, Bree. I wish things were different. I really do." I wanted to be angry, to yell at her for giving up on me, but how could I? Lisa had already done more for me than most people would. She didn't owe me anything, and I knew that. When my parents were sentenced to prison, I didn't cry. Not at first. I sat in the courtroom, numb, as the gavel came down and their fates were sealed. It didn't feel real. How could it? Just weeks before, we were sitting around a dinner table like a normal family, talking about my future and laughing at my dad's corny jokes. But that version of my life was gone. After the trial, I had nowhere to go. My friends' parents didn't want me, and other relatives made excuses. In the end, the responsibility fell on Aunt Rita, my dad's older sister. I barely knew Aunt Rita. She came to a few family gatherings over the years, but she always seemed more interested in showing off her designer clothes and criticizing my mom's cooking than getting to know me. My parents rarely spoke about her, and now I understood why. When I arrived at her front door with a duffel bag of clothes and a small box of belongings, she opened it with a forced smile. "Hey, Bree," she said, looking me up and down. "Hey," I said, with exhaustion. Aunt Rita's house was nice, the kind of place you see in an interior design magazine. White carpets, glass tables, abstract art on the walls, but it felt more like a museum than a home. She led me to the guest room, a small space with a stiff bed and no personal touches. "You can stay here. Keep it clean. I don't have time to deal with no BS. And I'll take you in because you family. But don't expect me to coddle you. You're not a child anymore. Not my child, anyway." I nodded, too numb to argue. Aunt Rita's rules became clear within days. I wasn't allowed to touch nothing of hers. I was to stay out of her business, and I was expected to pull my own weight around the place. She didn't even pretend to be happy I was there. For the most part, I stayed locked in the bedroom feeling like a charity case. Aunt Rita was 41 going on 25. At least that's how she carried herself. She had no kids, no real responsibilities outside of herself, and that's exactly how she liked it. It was clear that Aunt Rita's life revolved around herself and Tyree, her 25-year-old boyfriend, who seemed like he belonged in a completely different world than hers. Tyree was charming, the kind of guy who could light up a room just by walking in it. He was tall, dark, and handsome with nice brown eyes and a way of looking at you like you the most important person in the world. I couldn't understand what he saw in Aunt Rita, who treated him like an accessory. At first, Tyree barely noticed me. I was just the awkward niece who had invaded their space. But things changed one afternoon after Aunt Rita snapped at me for staying in the bed past noon. I went out on the porch to blow off some steam, trying to keep my composure. That's when Tyree found me. "Hey, she tough, huh?" You have no idea. He chuckled, his voice warm and kind. Actually, I think I do. So tell me, why you sit in that room all day? You 18, he said with a curious look in his face. You should be out with your people, doing whatever it is y'all do, not stuck in here all day. Not everyone's built for running the streets every day, I said. Nah, you ain't built for it, he said with a smirk. But seriously, what's up? You don't got friends to kick it with? I used to. I had friends. But when my parents got locked up, things changed. Word got around and people started talking. Some of the worst shit came from the ones who I thought was my friends. Damn, that's messed up. Yeah, well, it made me realize I don't need them. I'd rather be by myself than deal with fake people who really don't give a shit about me. Look, I get why you feel that way, but locking yourself in this house ain't the answer. You too young to be acting like life already over. I gave him a weak smile. It's not that simple, Tyree. I can't just pretend like everything's fine. I'm not saying you gotta pretend. I'm saying you deserve better than this. I let out a bitter laugh. And what does better even look like? 'Cause right now, I don't see it. You might not see it, but I do. Before I could respond, the screen door swung open behind us, and Aunt Rita's voice cut through the air. Tyree, she called, what you doing out here? Just talking to Bree, he said, his voice easy, like he didn't notice the tension radiating off her. Rita's eyes flicked to me, then back to him. Oh, she's fine. Trust me, she don't need you babysitting her. He turned back to me briefly, lowering his voice so only I can hear. Don't let her get to you, all right? He straightened up and followed her inside. The door slammed shut, leaving me alone on the porch, the cool air doing little to calm the frustration bubbling in my chest. I sat and thought to myself, maybe Tyree was right. Maybe it was time to start living again.
I hadn't been out on my own like this in a while, and honestly, it felt good. The air-conditioned breeze of the mall hit my skin as I walked through the entrance. I wasn't here for anything special, just looking around, wasting time, enjoying the fact that I wasn't cooped up at Aunt Rita's house. I was moving past one of the stores when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Well, 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 look who decided to step outside. I turned around and saw Tyree standing a few feet away, looking at me like he had just seen a ghost. I smirked. What, you thought I was gonna sit in the house forever? He walked up, scanning me with those sharp eyes of his. Honestly, yeah. So what you doing here? I asked. Had to pick up a couple things, keep the wardrobe right. I laughed. Oh, so you one of those. Gotta stay fresh every time you step out. He smirked. Something like that. Come on, he said, tilting his head toward the food court. Let's grab a bite to eat. We sat across from each other, the food between us barely touched as the conversation flowed. Tyree leaned back in his chair, watching me with that usual mix of curiosity and amusement, while I picked at my fries. So what's the plan, Bree? He asked. You just vibing for now, or you actually got something in mind for the future? I don't know yet. I mean, I know I can't stay in Aunt Rita's house forever, but I don't really have a plan either. You smart. You'll figure it out. Just don't get comfortable in a situation that ain't meant for you. I let that sit for a second before flipping the question on him. What about you? What do you do? He shrugged. Work, handle business, trying to stay ahead. I raised an eyebrow. Legal business? Tyree chuckled. Mostly. I ain't no mostly. It's either yes or no. He smirked. Let's just say I move smart. That's all you need to know. After we finished eating, we walked back to his car. The drive back to Aunt Rita's was quiet, but not in an awkward way. You good? He asked, glancing over at me. Yeah, thanks for bringing me home. That bus drags. He smirked, keeping his eyes on the road. Don't thank me yet. I rolled my eyes but couldn't help the small smile that crept onto my lips. As soon as Tyree and I stepped through the front door, Aunt Rita was already in the living room, sitting on the couch, sipping on a glass of wine. Aunt Rita looked up from the couch, her eyes lighting up in mild surprise. I ran into your niece at the mall, Tyree said casually, setting his keys on the table. Oh, I'm glad to see you out and about, Bree. Yeah, I got out for a bit. It felt good. Aunt Rita gave us a small smile, almost approving. It's good to get out, breathe fresh air. I know you've been cooped up in here for too long. I know I can be hard on you sometimes, but I do it because I care. Yeah, I know, I said, walking to my bedroom, with the feeling that maybe we were on the same page. From that moment, things between us shifted. Things were different now. Much different. The house had a warmth to it that it hadn't had before, a kind of calm that had settled in and made everything feel more peaceful. It wasn't perfect, life rarely was, but it was better. There were no more awkward silences or strained conversations between Aunt Rita and me, no more feeling like a stranger in her home. Now it felt like we were real family. Tyree was a big part of that. His presence had a way of pulling Aunt Rita and me closer. It wasn't forced, it was just natural. We all went out for brunch together every other weekend now. It was a tradition we built from scratch, and it felt almost sacred. The kind of thing where no matter what happened during the week, you could sit down at the table, eat, and laugh together. I would sit back, looking at Aunt Rita and Tyree, realizing Aunt Rita wasn't just my aunt no more. She was my friend. And Tyree wasn't just my aunt's boyfriend. He had become an older brother of sorts. The sun was just beginning to peek through the blinds. I had woken up early just by chance and found myself lying in bed staring at the ceiling. I wasn't expecting anything extraordinary, but as I lay there, I felt a shift in the air. Today was different. I was turning 19. Suddenly, I heard a soft knock on my door. Bree, you awake? Aunt Rita's voice drifted through the door. I smiled, knowing what was coming. Yeah, I'm up. The door opened slowly. Happy birthday, Aunt Rita said. She handed me a large, neatly wrapped box. I sat up, feeling a mix of gratitude and surprise. Aunt Rita had never been big on sentimental gestures, so this felt like a shift. Thanks, I said, reaching out to take the gift from her hands. She had got me a pink Coach purse I had my eyes on for months. Tyree's making breakfast. Get yourself together. It'll be ready soon. Just as she turned to leave, the door creaked open again, and Tyree appeared in the doorway, a grin plastered across his face. Happy birthday, girl, he said, his deep voice smooth and teasing. He set the tray on my lap, pancakes drizzled in syrup, eggs, crispy bacon, and a cup of coffee just the way I liked it. He even had a little fruit on the side, like he was trying to be fancy with it. He watched me take a bite before he leaned in slightly. I need you to be ready by 6 tonight. I froze me a bite, looking up at him. For what? You'll see.
The house was quiet. Aunt Rita was gone off to work. That left me here, standing in front of the mirror, adjusting to my dress. I wasn't used to dressing up like this, but when Tyree told me to be ready at 6, to wear something nice, I had a feeling tonight wasn't going to be just any regular night. I took one last look at myself, smoothing my hands down my dress before stepping out of my room. The moment I walked into the living room, I froze. Tyree was standing near the door, waiting, and when his eyes landed on me, something shifted in the air. He let out a low exhale, his gaze dragging over me slow. Damn, Bree, he muttered, shaking his head. You cleaned up nice. I swallowed, feeling my stomach tighten at the way he was looking at me. It wasn't friendly. At least, it didn't feel friendly. But I pushed the thought aside. Well, you said wear something nice, so I trailed off, giving a small shrug. His lips tugged to a smirk as he took a step back and motioned toward the door. Come on, birthday girl, your ride's late. The drive was smooth and quiet. Tyree had one hand on the wheel, the other resting casually on his thigh. Every so often, I catch him looking at me out the corner of his eye, but he didn't say much. When he finally pulled up to the restaurant, my eyes widened. It wasn't some little spot on a corner. It was upscale, the kind of place Aunt Rita would have loved to be seen at. I turned to him, confused. Tyree, this is nice. You didn't have to do all this. His smirk deepened. Yeah, I did.
The way he said it made my breath catch for a second, but I didn't press him on it. Instead, I let him open my door, let him rest his hand on my lower back as he led me inside. The restaurant was dimly lit, elegant, the kind of place where the waiters wore suits and spoke softly. We were seated in a private corner, away from the crowd, and as soon as I sat down, I felt the weight of the moment settle between us. Tyree leaned back in his chair, watching me with that same unreadable expression. So, tell me something. How's it feel to be 19? Like 18, but with less patience. He chuckled. Nah, 19's different. You're stepping into something new now. Feels like everything ahead of you is either about to make you or break you. Is that how you felt at 19? Something like that. I studied him, wondering about the things he didn't say. Tyree wasn't the type to spill his thoughts easily, but there was always something deeper beneath his smooth words. As the night went on, we talked, laughed. It felt easy, but that ease was also dangerous, because the longer we sat there, the more I started noticing things, like the way his eyes lingered on me, the way his voice softened when he said my name, the way he leaned in just slightly when I spoke, like he wanted to catch every word. And that's when reality hit me. Tyree wasn't mine. He was with Aunt Rita. I swallowed hard, trying to shake the thought, but the energy between us was thick. It was the way he looked at me, like he forgot who I was supposed to be to him. Or maybe, for tonight, he didn't care. I cleared my throat, pushing my plate away. I still don't get why you went through all this trouble. A fancy dinner, all this, you didn't have to do. Maybe I wanted to. Something in my chest tightened, because deep down I knew this wasn't just a friendly dinner, and Tyree knew that too. The ride home was thick with unspoken words. The low music was the only sound filling the space between us. Tyree's words from earlier kept playing in my head. Maybe I wanted to. I knew what he meant, and if I was being honest with myself, I felt it too. But I couldn't go there, not with him, not when he belonged to Aunt Rita. We good? He said as he pulled up to the house, scanning the driveway. I exhaled in relief. We had time. Slipping out of the car, I followed him around the side of the house, our movements quick and quiet as we made our way through the back door. I had barely made it into my room when I heard Aunt Rita's front door unlock. My heart was still beating a little bit fast from earlier, from the quiet ride home, from the way Tyree had looked at me when we pulled into the driveway, like he wasn't ready for the night to end either. I had changed into a fitted tank and shorts, something comfortable, something that made it easier to pretend tonight didn't happen the way it did. But as soon as I heard Aunt Rita's voice drift through the house, I found myself hesitating before sitting on the bed, leaving my door cracked just enough to hear. Lord, I thought this day would never end, she muttered. I swear they working me like crazy. You still letting them work you like that? Tyree's voice was smooth, deep, unbothered. Somebody got to pay the bills around here, and it damn sure ain't you or Bree. She giggled. Tyree chuckled lowly. I pay my way, and Bree young. Let her figure her shit out. Yeah, Rita sighed. Anyway, me and Kim been talking about finally using these vacation days before they expire. We gonna take a trip to Miami. You in? I mean, Tyree dragged like he was debating. I could use a little getaway. Cool, I already counted you in. There was a short pause. Then Tyree spoke again, his tone casual but pointed. So, what about Bree? I perked up slightly, my heart beating just a little faster. Rita sighed, clearly not trying to entertain the idea. What about her? She coming too, right? Boy, this ain't no family vacation, but I guess she can come if she want to. I stayed quiet, my heart racing. A trip to Miami. Me, Rita, Kim, and Tyree. The moment we stepped off the plane, the thick Miami heat wrapped around me like new skin. The energy in the air was different, lit. The whole city was wide awake even though it was barely past noon. Woo, now this is what I'm talking about, Kim said.
Sun, palm trees, and fine men everywhere. Miami, baby. Rita laughed, adjusting her designer tote on her shoulder. I'm about to be in my zone. Tyree rolled his suitcase beside him, smirking. Y'all act like y'all never been nowhere before. Boy, hush, we here to have a good time. I stayed quiet, taking everything in. The bright blue sky, the palm trees. This was so different from back home, and I felt something in me starting to unwind. All right, car is waiting for us, Tyree said, checking his phone. Y'all ready? A sleek black SUV was already parked at the curb, the driver standing by waiting. Now this what I like, Rita smirked. First class treatment. Kim climbed in first, followed by Rita, and I was about to step in next when I felt a hand brush against my back. A shiver ran up my spine before I even turned around. Tyree. You good? He asked. I swallowed, nodding quickly. Yeah, I'm good. His eyes lingered on me for a second longer before he nodded toward the car. Go ahead, shorty. I climbed in, settling into the leather seats as Tyree got in last, pulling the door shut behind him. The ride to the hotel was filled with Rita and Kim talking about their plans. Shopping, beach, clubs, and rooftop lounges. Tyree mostly just scrolled on his phone, but every now and then I could feel his eyes on me, like he was checking on me without making it obvious. When we finally pulled up to the hotel, I couldn't help but stare. Damn, Kim whistled. Y'all see this? It was stunning. Tall, sleek, all glass and luxury. This what I'm talking about, Rita said, stepping out of the SUV. Now this a vibe. We grabbed our bags and headed inside. Check-in was quick, and within minutes we were heading up to our rooms. All right, so me and Tyree got the suite, Rita said, glancing at her key card. Kim, you're right next door, and Bree, you're on the other side near the vending machine. My stomach did a small flip at that. Separate rooms. Space. Tyree caught my eye briefly before smirking. Looks like you got your own little getaway, huh? Guess so. All right, y'all get settled, Rita said. We meeting back up in an hour. It's time to turn up. As everyone split off, I stepped into my room and closed the door. I dropped back on the bed, arms stretched out, staring up at the ceiling. Miami. The first night in Miami, we all decided to start things off classy. A rooftop lounge overlooking the city. The vibe was perfect. Dim lighting, soft R&B playing in the background, and expensive food and drinks. Rita sat next to Tyree, her arm looped through his, showing everyone in the room exactly who he belonged to. Kim was the one on the prowl, her eyes scanning the crowd like she was searching for a meal. This is exactly what I needed, a nice little getaway. No stress, no drama, just vibes. We just got here, Tyree smirked, his hand resting lazily on Rita's thigh. Let's see if you still saying that by the end of the trip. Boy, please, as long as I got you next to me, I'm good. I tried not to watch them too closely, but it was hard not to. Seeing them together like that, I shouldn't care, but I did. I kept quiet while Kim talked about how she was going to find herself a Miami fling. Tyree caught my silence, leaning back in his seat. You good? I'm fine, just taking it all in. After a while, Kim convinced Rita to get up and take pictures with her, leaving me and Tyree alone at the table. You really ain't feeling it? It's cool, I said, shrugging. Just not used to all this. Tyree tilted his head. Come on. Come on where? Come on, let's get some air. You look like you about to disappear. I hesitated, but eventually got up, following him past the bar and out onto the rooftop balcony. The warm Miami breeze hit me instantly. Better? He asked. I nodded. Yeah. For a few moments, we just stood there, watching the city lights. There was something peaceful about it. Or maybe it was just being away from Rita's eyes for a second.
When we finally went back inside, Rita was all smiles, pulling Tyree right back to his side. "Where y'all sneak out to?" "Just outside," Tyree said. Shorty needed some air. Rita glanced at me, then shrugged. "Well, don't go disappearing too much. We supposed to be having fun. Together."
The second night, Rita was feeling extra. "Tonight, we hitting the club," she announced as she finished getting ready. "We only in Miami for a few days, and I need at least one night to go crazy." "Crazy how?" Tyree asked. She laughed, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Don't worry, baby, not that kind of crazy." Kim, on the other hand, was on a mission. "We need to go somewhere exclusive, somewhere with VIP sections and bottle service." Tyree shook his head. "Y'all doing the most." The club was packed. Rita and Kim instantly hit the dance floor, while Tyree and I ended up in the section. "She really got you out here playing security tonight." "You see her? She acting wild." Rita was doing the most, dancing on everything except the ceiling, but at the end of the day, her eyes kept finding Tyree. I should have been happy about that. Instead, I hated how much I wanted his eyes on me. "Come dance," he said, suddenly catching me off guard. "What?" "Come on," he nudged his head toward the dance floor. "You've been sitting still too long. Just one song." I hesitated, but before I could say no, he grabbed my hand and led me in the crowd. It wasn't much, just us moving to the beat, his hands low on my waist, his breath warm against my ear. But it was too much at the same time. We got back to the hotel late. Rita was tipsy, leaning against Tyree as we stepped in the elevator. My feet hurt," she groaned. "Ty, you'll rub them for me when we get upstairs?" "Yeah, I got you." Rita smiled, kissing his neck. "That's why I love you." I looked straight ahead, pretending like I wasn't paying attention. When we got to our floor, Rita pulled Tyree straight to their room. Kim disappeared in hers, and I went to mine. I closed the door behind me, exhaling. 2 nights in Miami, and I already felt like I was losing my mind. The sun was going down, but the heat was still sitting in the air, sticky and annoying. Rita was already deep into her second bottle, her laughter echoing across the hotel lounge as she tried to keep her balance. She was oblivious, of course, lost in her own world, the liquor turning her into a carefree version of herself, unaware of anything going on around her. Something had been building between Tyree and I the past few days. He stood close, just enough to be in my space, the way his eyes lingered just a moment too long when they met mine. It was more than a look. It was more like intent. I tried to act like I wasn't aware of the way his hand brushed mine, the low-heated chuckle he gave when our eyes met across the room. "You having fun?" he asked, his breath almost brushing my ear as he spoke. "Yeah," I replied, trying to play it cool. "I'm having a great time." Kim's sharp eyes flicked between us, squinting slightly as she observed the shift. Tyree was acting like we was the only 2 people in the room. It was too much. Meanwhile, Rita was drunk, stumbling and giggling uncontrollably, her hand gripping Tyree's arm for support. She leaned in close, giving him a kiss on the cheek as she swayed. Tyree, ever the gentleman, smiled, but his eyes never left me. Kim noticed it too, the shift in his attention, the way he pulled away from Rita just slightly, as if she was an afterthought. Rita, oblivious to everything, didn't seem to care. The night was winding down, and the group of us were making our way back to the hotel rooms. Rita had had more than enough to drink, her steps unsteady as she leaned against the elevator wall, giggling softly at her own jokes. She was in her own world. "Can you believe it?" Rita slurred. "This trip's been so much fun. I needed this. You know how crazy work been, right, Tyree?" Tyree, standing next to me, gave a half smile, nodding along, but his attention never fully left me. His body was angled slightly toward me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him. But he didn't say much, just letting Rita chatter away, not fully engaging. Kim stood beside him, arms crossed, as she observed the dynamic. She wasn't drunk, but if she was, it was clear as day. She saw everything. I could feel the heat between Tyree and I, his presence almost too close, his eyes glancing at me now and then, like we was having a conversation without saying a word. But Rita, blissfully unaware, continued to laugh, talk, and walk her way into the elevator as the doors closed behind us. I can't believe we leaving tomorrow, Rita continued. I need a vacation like this every year, you know? Just get away from everything. Mm-hmm, Tyree said. He wasn't looking at Rita. He was looking at me. The tension in the elevator was intense now. Kim shifted slightly, her eyes flicking between Tyree and me. The subtle smile on her lips only deepened the sense of unease in the air. The elevator rose to the upper floors, and for a brief second, I felt like the walls were closing in around me. The elevator doors opened, and Rita stumbled slightly as she pushed herself off the wall. Tyree moved first, stepping out with me trailing behind him. But before I could catch a glimpse of Kim's eyes, sharp and calculating, her gaze meeting mine for a brief second. The night wasn't over yet. The tension still hung in the air, lingering like an unanswered question, and I could feel it tightening with every step I took. Rita stumbled ahead while Tyree and I stayed close behind, but Kim stood at the back of the elevator, watched us both.
I had taken my time getting ready for bed, slipping into a silk cami and shorts. The ocean breeze flowed through the open balcony door. I had just settled under the covers when I heard it. 3 slow knocks at my door. My breath caught in my throat. I knew it was him before I even moved. For a second, I hesitated, but with a deep breath, I unlocked the door and pulled it open just enough to see him standing there. Tyree. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes, they told me everything. Why are you here? You know why. Let me in, Bree. His voice was smooth and firm. I should have said no. Should have reminded him who he was to her, who I was supposed to be in all this. But I didn't. Instead, I stepped back. He walked in, closing and locking the door behind him. The air in the room shifted instantly. He was close, too close. The scent of his cologne still lingering from earlier, the warmth of his presence pressing against every bit of my self-control. I folded my arms over my chest, trying to play it cool. If Rita wakes up and finds out you here, she won't. His confidence sent a shiver down my spine. I looked up at him, really looked at him. The way his jaw flexed, the way his gaze moved over me slowly, like he was making a decision he already knew the answer to. I should have stepped back, told him to leave, reminded him who he belonged to, but my body betrayed me. The way his fingertips pressed into my waist, the slow drag of his breath near my ear, it was enough to make every logical thought disappear. You want me to go? Tyree's fingers skimmed up my arm, slow, teasing, his touch burning through the thin silk of my cami. He was testing me, waiting to see if I'd push him away. But I didn't. Bree, he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, like he was giving me one last chance to stop this. I turned my head slightly, just enough to meet his gaze, and that was all it took. His lips were on mine before I could think twice. The kiss was slow at first, hesitant, like even he was testing how far we were willing to go. But the second I responded, the second my fingers curled into his shirt, he deepened it, his grip on my waist tightening as he pulled me against him. I let out a soft, breathy hem as his hands moved, skimming over me, like he was trying to memorize every inch of me. My mind was screaming at me, reminding me of everything this would complicate. But my body was already answering to him. Tell me to stop, Tyrese muttered against my lips, his breath hot against my skin. I looked up at him. I didn't say a word because I didn't want him to stop. And the moment he saw that in my eyes, he didn't hold back. The sunlight was seeping through the curtains. I stirred awake, my head still heavy with sleep. It took a moment to process where I was, and when I did, I felt the rush of heat spread across my face. Tyree. He was lying next to me. He fell asleep here, next to me. My heart skipped a beat as I watched him, his breathing steady, the way his muscles tensed slightly even in sleep, as if he were fighting the pull of waking up. I shifted slowly, careful not to disturb him. I was wide awake now, my mind racing through everything that had happened the night before. I needed to move. My body demanded it, but I didn't want to leave him there. So instead, I crept out of the bed, careful not to make a sound. I went to the window and looked out, the city of Miami still alive below, while I was stuck here, caught in the silence of the moment. A rustle behind me broke my thoughts. "You up already?" "Yeah, I just couldn't sleep anymore." He stretched his long, lean body out and sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes. "Last night," he trailed off, looking at me like he wanted to say something, but the words didn't quite come. "Yeah, it was something," I responded, my voice low. He stood up, the muscles in his back and shoulders flexing as he reached for his clothes. "I better get back to my room before Rita wakes up." There it was, the reminder that he was with her, not me. The rush of disappointment hit me harder than I cared to admit, but I tried not to show it. "Right," I replied, nodding. I turned my gaze back to the window, needing some distance, both physically and emotionally. Tyree moved around the room, gathering his things. There was a pause, a moment of stillness where I thought maybe he'd say something more, but he didn't. When he turned back to face me, his expression was soft, more serious than usual. "I'll catch you later." "Yeah, later." The door shut behind me and I was standing there in the quiet room, my thoughts in a million places. What the hell had just happened? And where did this leave us? I wasn't sure, but I knew one thing. Nothing about this was going to be simple.
The flight back home was quiet. I was sitting near the window trying to clear my head after everything that happened the night before. Tyree was in the row across from me, and every time I looked up, I caught him glancing over at me. I tried to focus on something else, but his eyes lingered on me like he couldn't help it. I couldn't ignore the tension that hung between us. It felt like something shifted, and I wasn't sure if I liked it or not. Eventually, Tyree leaned over in his seat and caught my eye. "You good?" "Yeah, just tired." "I don't want things to get weird between us, Bree." Before I could respond, Rita walked up the aisle and took her seat next to him. She smiled, clearly still in a good mood from the trip. I quickly glanced at Tyree, who shifted in his seat and gave Rita a casual smile. As the plane took off, I couldn't stop thinking about what happened. Things felt different now, and I didn't know where it was going to lead.